It was a heavy night in Ouagadougou, the kind of night when the air itself feels thick, like it's warning you that something big is about to happen. Inside the tall, quiet walls of the presidential residence, Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat alone at his desk. Stacks of reports covered the table. Threats, warnings, plots. His sharp eyes scanned them one by one, but his mind was somewhere else, deep in thought. Then, suddenly, the phone on his desk lit up. The screen showed two letters. N-G, Nigeria. Traoré leaned forward slowly. He picked up the phone without a word. A warm, confident voice filled the room. "Brother Ibrahim, how are you?" It was Nigeria's president, Bola Tinubu. Traoré listened carefully. He knew that kind of voice, smooth, friendly, polished, the voice of a man who had spent his whole life in politics. Tinubu didn't waste time. All this tension with ECOWAS, the sanctions. "Brother, it doesn't have to be like this. Let's meet, just you and me, in Abuja. We'll sit, talk, solve this like Africans, like brothers." Traoré stayed silent for a moment. The idea sounded simple. Too simple. "Peace talks?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, yes," Tinubu chuckled. "No traps, no France, no games. Just two African leaders talking." There was a long pause. Traoré's mind raced. Finally, he answered softly, "I'll think about it." The call ended, but the silence that followed was heavier than before. Something felt wrong. Something didn't smell right. Traoré stood up from his chair and walked to the window, staring at the dark city lights. Then, without hesitation, he picked up another phone, a secure line, and called his intelligence chief. "Track all French movements in Abuja," he ordered. "Watch every new face at the airport, and monitor all secret channels. If this is a trap, I want to see it before it closes." "Understood, Mr. President," the officer replied sharply. But what Traoré didn't know yet was that, at that very moment, hundreds of miles away in Abuja, another phone call was happening. A French official, speaking in a whisper, gave a simple order. "Once he lands, don't let him leave. Ground his plane. Delay him just long enough. We'll handle the rest." The Nigerian contact answered coldly. "Understood. He won't even make it past the tarmac." The trap was set. An invitation dressed like a handshake. A meeting dressed like peace. But waiting behind it, handcuffs, betrayal, and worse. The news broke quietly. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré heading to Nigeria for peace talks, the headline said. But in truth, this was not peace. This was a carefully planned ambush. At the airport in Abuja, Nigerian secret agents tightened their plans. At the French embassy, men in suits rushed into meetings. At a hidden command center near the runway, an officer whispered into his headset, "Target approaching, prepare to intercept." Outside, reporters and cameramen lined up, waiting to capture the moment the African leaders shook hands. But inside the shadows, a very different moment was being prepared. The capture of a lion. But lions do not walk into traps. The jet touched down. The doors opened. Security teams tensed, ready to move. But when the passengers stepped out, a wave of confusion swept through the air. It wasn't Ibrahim Traoré. It was two calm, smiling diplomats. "President Traoré couldn't attend," one said politely. "He sends his regards." The Nigerians blinked, confused. The French agents monitoring from hotel windows shouted into their radios. "What happened? Where is he?" But it was too late, because hundreds of miles away, in Ouagadougou, at that very moment, President Ibrahim Traoré sat calmly in a studio wearing his military uniform. And live on national television, he looked straight into the camera and spoke to the world. "They thought they would catch me landing quietly in Abuja," he said, his voice steady, "but I do not answer to traps. I do not answer to puppets. I answer only to my people." Then he said the line that would echo across Africa. You cannot arrest a lion by calling him to dinner. The world reacts. The internet exploded. Within minutes, the video spread across Burkina Faso, across West Africa, and across the world. In the streets of Ouagadougou, crowds poured out, waving flags, singing songs. Old men wept. Young men danced. Mothers lifted their children onto their shoulders, pointing at the TV screens and saying, "Look, this is what courage looks like." And Ibrahim Traoré wasn't finished yet. He held up a thick file, marked with intelligence stamps, and dropped it heavily onto the desk. "Here," he said, "are the recordings, the messages, the transfer orders from Paris to Abuja, proof of the plan to capture me." Then came the audio, real voices, real plots, French officials, Nigerian contacts, and the cold, clear words, "Ensure Traoré does not leave Nigeria. Initiate stabilization protocol." There was no denying it now. The truth was out. The fire across Africa. In Mali, students painted murals of a lion walking past a broken cage. In Niger, radio hosts said, "Africa is awake. The ones who used to pull the strings are now pulling excuses." In Nigeria, the streets of Lagos and Abuja boiled with anger. Young people asked loudly, "If our leaders betray brothers for France, who do they really work for?" In Ghana, market women wore shirts that said, "We are all Traoré now." Everywhere across Africa, one truth rang clear. This was not just a Burkina Faso story. This was an African story, a story about dignity, about betrayal, about a lion refusing to be caged. Meanwhile, Tinubu said nothing. No press conference, no denial, just silence. But the silence was louder than any speech. And as the days passed, something incredible happened. The people themselves became the voice. They marched, they painted, they sang, not for politicians, not for parties, but for freedom, for pride, and above all, for the lion who saw the trap and walked right past it, because you can call a lion to dinner, but you cannot make him forget he is a lion. And this, Africa would never forget.